in the first place, when we started playing music, it was when we started playing music together, it was about using all the synth and drum machine that Steve had in his place. So it was all about electronic music right in the first place, and because we listened to quite a lot of electronic music from the 80s, but we wanted to turn this into something, hopefully kind of new. So the roots are the same as the bands that some of the bands that Midge Ure was founded in the early 80s. So Visage, Ultravox, all these bands have definitely had a big influence on the sounds that we use today. So,
but at the same time, hopefully we are forward looking. We're certainly not wanting to just copy what's happened. So I think both of us are equally inspired by stuff that's happened since, like LCD Sound System, Balls of Canada, a lot of the darkwave stuff. But outside of that, we're both big Beatles fans. So hopefully that becomes through melodies and song structures, and ththings like Joy Division and Cure.
Yeah.
So it's not just that synth pop thing that's inspired us. It's hopefully we're crushing all of that and coming out with who we are.
You may or may not remember from the review I wrote from the Birmingham show, but I likened you to a mixture of Kraftwerk and Pet Shop Boys.
Maybe not so much the Pet Shop Boys. Certainly Kraftwerk. When I was a teenager, when I kind of left pop music of my generation and started to look elsewhere, the two things that I got into were punk rock and Kraftwerk. So I've always had this kind of noisy guitar thing, and then the kind of electronic Kraftwerk. I admire Pet Shop Boys, but I wouldn't say they were an influence.
Not an influence at all, but for me, there was something about those extremes within the way that you presented yourselves on stage and the way that you write your music. There's the extreme of the Kraftwerk. You see the inspiration there. I'll come in a moment onto the name Scenius and what the implication of that is. The Pet Shop Boys, in terms of the presentation and the way that their act is built upon a foundation of what people have done before. So the band name Scenius, there's obviously something. You talked a little bit about how you got together and started making music. I'm getting a sense that there's something important in the name Scenius as part of that story, that origin as well.
Drawn tunnel.
Yeah, hopefully when you're looking for a name for your band, it's always kind of a big thing, and you don't want to miss the target too much. So I'm not too sure which of us came with this. We were watching a Brian Eno interview, and then in this, is one of, as I said, we're kind of we like a lot of bands that have been the first to use synths and drum machines in the late 70s and early 80s. So obviously Brian Eno is one of them. So we were watching one of his interviews in which he was explaining, I think it's his own thing to have come up with the word Scenius, explaining that genius is kind of a scam in a way, because you can't come up with everything just on your own. You have to draw inspiration from different places, and so he says most of the time it would be a scene when you're in music. So he's kind of coined this word, which was Scenius, in order to explain that it seems more appropriate to speak of Scenius if you want to apply the concept of coming up with new ideas to music, because there is no way that you can come up with just everything new at the same time. So because we were looking for a name, and apparently no one had used this one before, we thought, hey, might as well use it. So it was one thing down. That was
deciding a name for a band is probably one of the hardest things in the whole process.
Like laying a child, I guess. You're conscious that at some point you might feel like you're stuck with it.
There's two things I've always found hard: coming up with a name for a band, and then which order do you list the songs on an album. The that's much harder than writing music, actually.
Yes, yes, yes. Well, the word Scenius, I read, it's reading through social media posts about the tour. I saw some random member of the public's comment was Scenius, what a stupid name, what, you know, for a
I can
band.
see that.
And obviously this person has not taken the trouble to look at what the word actually means.
Yeah.
My company name, so all my different things that I do are under the name Genius, actually. And a lot of people will say to me, oh, do you think you're clever? And I've found out Genius, actually, although most people now use it to mean somebody who's clever, it doesn't actually mean that. It means inspiration. And so whether it's the inspiration from one or from many, I think there's something interesting there about inspiration has to come from outside. It can't come from inside. Otherwise, all you're ever doing is consuming what you've done before. So coming back to a point you made earlier about sort of growing beyond and trying something new. You built a sound on the foundation of things that have come before, like some of the bands you mentioned, and also I can hear strains of people like Depeche Mode and the bits of Vince Clarke and all sorts of stuff in there. So you've got not only your Scenius, your collective inspiration, but also it struck me that you're building on the collective inspiration of all of those bands that came before that tried new stuff that was mostly hated by people.
Yeah.
You know, if you go back to the late 70s, early 80s, the synth was a gimmick, it was a toy.
I think the Musicians Union tried to ban them.
Right. Right. There's always something killing music, isn't it? Home taping, synths, whatever it is. There's always some threat. And so really you built something on that foundation, but then not being limited by it. It's more like it's a common ancestor in the family tree, rather than being that's the pool that we're drawing from.
So hopefully, you know, in a way, not going to compare us to the Beatles or David Bowie, but you know, they were amazing artists, but they were influenced by people before them as well. So you can't help but be influenced by people behind you that have broken boundaries. But the thing to do is to try and then do your own thing. Be influenced, but then shift it to do your own thing.
And as a producer, you work with a lot of other bands.
Yeah.
And so you get to work with other people's ideas, some of which I guess you say, that's a good idea, let's do that. And others that you think, that's a terrible idea, but...
Oh, I've learned so much working with other bands. Good things and negative things. You know, things to try, things to avoid. Not in song structures or melodies or anything like that, but just how to kind of, how to run your band, I guess, things to avoid.
And how does that inform the way that you two work together?
Well, I don't answer any for Steve, but as for me, the first astonishing thing for me was that I had never created music without being in the same room with the person I'm making music with before. So in the first place, I thought, well, this is probably not going to work. But we just tried it and it worked. So all my experiences were not really very helpful in making music with Steve in this circumstances, because as I said, I didn't know how it worked to make music when you can't see in the eye of the guy that is working with you that he enjoys the idea that you've just given. So you have to find other ways to you have to be first very convinced that your idea is good before you send it over to your partner, and then when you get a reply, you've got to try to read between the lines, or try to know how to take it further without having the physical expression of the return that you get from someone, which is that was definitely something new for me. And
it's really interesting that it almost sounds like there's a layer of censorship before you share an idea, whereas I have this sort of stereotypical image of the band in a studio jamming and just playing this stuff, and something emerges organically from that.
Yeah.
But you've got this layer where
that doesn't happen.
You don't want to just share the first thing that comes into your mind.
Yeah.
You want it to be worth sharing.
Well, unless it's good. If the first thing that comes into your mind seems good. So usually, as for me, I would usually leave a couple of days between the moment when I've got an idea, and then listen back to it, and either ditch it when I listen back, or stick to it for a few more days, then come back later. And once I've I'm sure that it's good, then I send it over, and hopefully Steve says, "Well, I like it." Sometimes he does. He doesn't. But that was quite rare. Yeah.
I get surprised sometimes. So I send the music over to Fabrice, all via the internet. So this kind of couldn't have happened 30 years ago. You'd have been sending cassettes or something off. I don't know how we'd have done it. Floppy disks. So I send the music off. Fabrice listens to it, tries to write some words and melody to it, and then sends me it back. But quite often it's chopped up. So what say I think is the chorus might end up being the verse and vice versa. So when I get it back, I have to listen a good 4, 5, 6 times to kind of get used to the new version. Because sometimes it's a real shock about what's going on. And then the more I listen to it, then I realise what's going on. And pretty much every time I think I've kind of liked it once I've got used to it.
But that element of shock, as you put it, the unexpected, seems to be adding another source of inspiration.
Yeah.
Something's emerging.
I mean,
that
sometimes
you hadn't planned.
in rehearsal rooms, even if you've got 4 people, the traditional thing, sometimes you still get that shock anyway. Someone does something and it's like, wow, what was that? Isn't it?
Yeah, the same would happen, but more instantly.
Yeah. So it's just a bit more delayed.
So I know that you've produced for other bands, and that I guess a lot for bands that other people would have heard of, and a lot that we wouldn't necessarily have heard
A
of.
lot of John Peel kind of bands that virtually no one's ever heard of, yeah.
Right. And if we go back to the 80s, early 80s, which I think is the era that we would probably associate most with early electronic music, synth pop, and is one of my personal favourite subjects to talk about, is why the 80s and why the synthesizer was so important in music, so radical in the way that it transformed it, way democratized music. But kids no longer needed to learn how to play guitar or drums or whatever. They could make music in their bedrooms and produce stuff themselves. Which consequently means a lot of the stuff they produce is nobody should ever hear. But if we're interested in inspiration and experimentation, then that has to happen. We can't be constrained by the status quo, the system that like you said about the music industry and the synth.
Yeah.
Vets what should be considered music and not. So if we go back to the 80s, there was a period where people were like really famous for being producers. And it feels to me like we've lost that a little bit now. So if we go back to people like Thomas Dolby, Trevor Horn, Dave Stewart, Richard Hewson, who had the Ra Band, these were people who were producing big names, and they were making their own records as well when they wanted to do something that didn't fit into another band. And they were known for that. And I don't know, it feels to me like we've lost that a little bit. And I wondered if you were channeling a bit of that as well.
I think part of that is
sort of
that
sitting
there
between
was only
two
so
worlds.
many really big, expensive studios, and it cost a lot of money to go into that studio with an engineer and producer. So, but now it's, as you said, it's democratized. Everyone with a computer and the right software can do it. So
what's the
maybe that's
role
one of the
now
reasons there's
for-
less big names.
Right. So what's the role now for a producer, artist? Where do you sit within the industry? What's changed?
Pretty much every producer will now have at least a mix studio at home. And you do vocals. I mean, for me, if it's electronic stuff, people quite often record themselves and then just send me the files and then I mix. If I'm working with a live band, then I'll source a studio to go and record in, but then the mixing will be done behind. And again, it's the same process, whether they're just the other side of Leeds or in a different country, the process that we're going through with the mixing, I'll do the mix, email it to them, they'll have a listen, send me comments back, and I'll do some tweaks. And that might be a bit back and forth a few times and the mix is done. So it's very rare now that I'm in the same room with the band as I mix it. And I think that's quite common. Because at the touch of a button, you can just recall that mix and do some little tweaks and save it as a new note.
I'm getting a sense of how that feels for you. Is that less personal, less intimate, less enjoyable?
It enables me to spend more time mixing and really delving down, and there's less distractions. There isn't there's a party going on next door.
without having to explain to the drummer that no, we can't put the snare even louder than that.
Yeah. So, but I would miss if I didn't go into the studio with bands and produce and record as a group of people. So that I think that's still important.
So that brings the other piece of the puzzle in, which is the audience. This process that you're describing of creating music, whether you're in the same room or separated by the internet, you've come up with a great idea between the two of you. You think it sounds great, and then on a tour like this, you go and show it to an audience and see what kind of getting a sense of what they think. And it's an audience who are, if I can put it this way, kind of seeing you by accident.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's one of the questions when people come and talk to us afterwards and say that they've liked it. I generally ask them, "Is it, had you heard of us before tonight?" And a lot of them haven't. So, that's one of the great things about coming over to like this. We're meeting a lot of new people and playing songs for a lot of new people.
I think it's quite common in a tour like this that not everybody who's bought a ticket is there for the support act, unfortunately. There's a lot of emphasis.
That's the way it is.
It is, yeah. But it's also, I think, for more established musicians, one of the really important things they do is select support acts to help to give them a start. But, you're not neither of you are starting out in the music industry. You're not. I saw Paul Carrick at the Symphony Hall the week before, and he had a young Irish girl, Amy Meehan, with him. So I think she was about 21. So for her, that's a massive start in the music industry, and you're already some way down that road. So what impact does a tour like this have for you?
Well, first there's the impact that it has on us in terms of experience on stage, because when we played the first gig on the tour in Bath, it was we've realized recently that it was only our 9th gig. So obviously, by the end of the tour, we'd have tripled the number of gigs that we've in 1 month, the number of gigs that we had made in 3 or 4 years. So there's nothing that beats the experience that you can get on stage in terms of learning how to play your songs on stage. You can rehearse as much as you want, but being on stage is the only thing that will really teach you how to do it.
Yeah.
So obviously, hopefully there will be more positive results to the tour. We've talked about the new people who discover us, and we can see already we can see some spikes in numbers on social medias and all that. But for me, if it was only for the experience that you get on stage, I'd be really very happy just with that. So all the rest is a bonus, really.
And has your presentation changed then, even during the course of this tour?
I think we got better.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we're not used to playing such big spaces. So, yeah, it's kind of different. And I think we've been learning as we've been going along.
Well, the thing is, we also had to, from the first gig, we had to adapt the fact that we were going to play with the in-ear monitors, which none of us had done before. So I would say that the first gigs on the tour were probably very, we were a bit cautious because we had to adapt to the new situation of, not feeling the music in your body. There's no sound coming from a stage monitor, so there's no vibration making your body feel the music, and we've been used to that for 30 years. So it was kind of hard for me, not hard, but kind of a challenge in the beginning to get used to not feel the music in my body like I usually feel it. So because it's only coming in your ears. So the first gigs were probably trying to first handle that and get used to that. But now we're starting to get used to it, and I don't know where it comes from, but you start to find other way to let the music flow through your body.
From the ears down.
Yeah, from the ears down, and not from the bottom up.
Do you find that the experience of performing live then loops back into the studio? Do you write and record differently as a result?
Not yet. I've been very aware of a lot of bands that I've liked over many years that in the beginning, a lot of bands, they used to play in small clubs, and they're kind of writing for that. And then when they get huge fame, they start writing for stadiums. That's when I normally go for. But we're still a small band, you know. We're not used to playing in huge stadiums. So at this level, I don't think the next things we're going to write are going to be influenced by having played live on this tour. Could be wrong, but
I was thinking more in terms of the performance, for example, the way you sync, because I understand you like to play the keyboards manually rather than programming them.
it's both. But yes, all over the albums, there's obviously I have the computer that I can play it in, correct everything, get perfect timing, and for some sequences I do that. But then a lot of the top lines, a lot of the melodies would be played live and left. Sometimes not even with the computer information MIDI running it, just literally play it in, record it, done.
Yeah.
And it just adds a slight bit of humanity.
But before, even before you started playing live as Scenius, you both got a lot of experience of playing live anyway. So yeah, I guess you've always got an audience in mind when you are writing a song or recording a song.
Not for me, no. But for me, it's just the pure thing of writing. Everything else comes later. It's just, if I come up with an idea I like, that's the inspiration, nothing else.
Yeah, same here. I found that having an audience in mind when you write music is too dangerous in a way. So
Do you find that limiting? Like you're trying to write for a particular person?
yeah, I would first I wouldn't know exactly who that person is.
Yeah. It's kind of almost second guessing
Yeah.
what someone might want.
So now we're just
So
making the
just
music.
do what we do, and once the process is done and it's finished, it's then listen back to it. Is it any good? Is it worth releasing?
So what kind of things have you learned or perhaps would even do differently as a result of your experience on the tour?
I would have started rehearsing with in-ear monitors sooner than that, so as not to discover it just a couple of days before the tour started.
And that's a really interesting point because it's a technology that you would take for granted. I would not have thought that. I wouldn't have thought about the effect that you've described.
Maybe because you're used to interview more famous musicians, I guess, and that they've had the means to being equipped with
More because if I listen to music, it's generally not loud enough to feel it. So the idea that when you're on stage, you are using that sense, that tactile sense, as a way of orienting yourself within the performance, I find that very interesting.
Maybe it's more like if you compared this to being in a nightclub, and if you like, I don't know if you like dancing, but if you do, you'll understand that.
I'm not very good at it.
If you're in a nightclub, you could. Some people do that now. You can dance with just with headphones on.
Yeah.
It's definitely work. So it's not the same being dancing in your bedroom with headphones on, or being in a nightclub and there's boomers and monitors in the room. I think maybe this gives you a sense of how different it is. There's something that happens to your body when the music hits the body.
If you can imagine as an audience member, if there was no PA and everyone was on headphones, that would be kind of a different experience. Part of being in a big gig, it's half of it's visual, all the lights and the movement and everything, but half of it is the music, and part of that is you can feel the wave of audio hitting it.
Yeah, and feel everyone else around you, and feel everyone else's.
So it'd be the same thing, I think, for a lot of audience members. If you just put them on in-ear monitors, they'd feel slightly detached from everything. So I think even the audience would take a while to get used to it.
Absolutely, isolating was the word that came to my mind.
Yeah.
I was so bad.
I mean, it's great with the in-ear monitors. You can hear yourself. You can get the exact mix that you want. It's not the mess of the room with, loud sounds bouncing around. So it's great for that. It's just getting used to that you are slightly detached.
So I don't want to get hung up on the monitors themselves.
Yeah.
What I'm interested in more is this sense of being connected in the same space as the audience. And so what else have you learned, or you would perhaps still different?
There's a lot of travelling. So I think by the time of the end of the tour, we'll have done at least 4,000 miles in a month. And it's a lot. Family and friends are just quite surprised how it's not just in a nice perfect circle, or it's up and down across here. So we've passed the same place many times. Yeah, a lot of places we've passed many times. But that's the kind of way it is. And I do remember, for a long time looking at other bands' tour schedules, and you think that's crazy. But I guess it's the availability of the venue's name. So that's just the way it is.
The amount of travel that you're doing, obviously spending a lot of time physically together that you wouldn't normally do, given the way you talked about recording earlier. How does that affect, in any way, the relationship between the two of you, between everyone else who's involved?
Before now, yes.
Yeah, we had already spent probably up to 8 or 9 days together when we hadn't played many gigs before together, but whatever we did, it would usually be 2 or 3 days of rehearsals before, then 2 or 3 gigs, and probably a couple of days before whatever the departure date for the plane is for Steve to go back to the UK or me to fly back to France. So yeah, I think we've already stayed together for probably a week or 10 days. So we knew that that worked. So probably it was possible to extend this to a whole month. Plus to have some, it's 3 of us on the road now.
So we've got a friend of mine on tour with us who's been invaluable. Many titles, basically driver, merch guy, tour manager, whatever needs doing, he's helping us, and that's been a godsend.
Yeah. So another aspect of Scenius, all the people who are involved in that 45 minutes or whatever your support slot is, that's all the audience gets to see, with all the work that
as we keep
work behind the scenes.
And as we keep saying because we meet people that we've been in touch only by emails or Facebook before, and most of them, some of these people will be people who have played us on radio shows or interviewed us or reviewed us. So we keep saying when we meet them, of us, that we're happy to see them in real person for the first time. But we wouldn't be there on stage opening for Midge Ure if it had not been for all these people in the first place, because they've kept us going in a way. And when we applied for the Midge Ure tour, we've obviously that's what you do. You send a few articles that you've had in the press, and these things have definitely made us probably more, can you say, credible in English? When we applied for the tour, if it had just been for the music, I'm quite sure that we would have got the job. But when they've had a look at the what we had done, getting interviews, reviews, and airplay, I think it's made the band more credible, if you want to get into it in English. So
I think that, along with Midge, has got a bit of a history, I think, of helping newer bands and new things. So I think, speaking to other people, he's always been keen on that.
What do you plan to do next as a result of what you've achieved here?
One of the big things, I think, for both of us is try and plan our own gigs, end of the summer or the autumn. Obviously not be as big as this, but some small sweaty clubs around the country, and hopefully a lot of the people that we met, if we can play 150 people a night, that would be a massive success story for us. I actually also think it's my last band was a guitar band, and I feel so far it's been harder getting gigs for electronic music than guitar music. So hopefully that might change after this.
Well, on the back of the tour, we would also like to not take too much time before we finish new songs and release new stuff, because that's, I think, for both of us, that the thing that really drives us to write new songs and and to see how, without changing the recipe totally, which is what I think we've managed to do so far. We've just kept the same instruments, probably it's the same influences and the same way to approach writing melodies and all that. But the 3 albums are quite different from one another. So I think we are quite impatient to see what's going to come next.
Because we've already got probably about 12 songs, half of them with vocals, so we're kind of halfway to the next album anyway, but obviously we need time to finish it.
It's been real delight talking to you.
Oh, thank you.